Greetings and welcome to Outlaw Gamer Radio, the official podcast of OutlawGamers.com. This is the show where we live to play and play to live. I'm Brent Adams, joined by a man who has an entirely different idea from Samsung about what he's going to experience in Milk VR. Mr. Lauren Baumgarten. Lauren!
Can I tell you how hard it is for me when you're doing the new intro and you say Outlaw Gamer Radio and OutlawGamers.com not to just yell like woot 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 woot.
Yeah, you know, if you were any
I'm
kind
excited,
of man,
Brent.
If you were any kind of man, you just bust out a falcon cry right there, and not tell me later that you were thinking about busting out a falcon cry.
Caw-caw.
Listen, just so you know, caw-caw is not how you do the falcon cry.
That's my.
Next time we get Daniel on the show, I'll hook you up with him. He can show you how to do a fucking falcon cry.
First of all, don't ever hook me up with Daniel. But it's maybe one of the funniest parts of Arrested Development, and I can't leave out the part that yes, I do have an entirely different idea as to what Milk VR is going to be.
Considering maybe you originally wrote this in the doc as MILF VR,
maybe one of the worst consumer product names I've ever heard of.
I think we have a pretty clear idea of what you're expecting Milk VR to be. That's
that's exactly
that's all
right.
I'm saying.
That's exactly right. Well, welcome, Brent, to episode 2 of Outlaw Gamer Radio.
Yes, indeed.
I'm very excited to be here with you.
I am as well.
We should. The first show went well, I thought. We had I had a couple issues with my microphone, which was no fun, and we got it out a day late because of some of the new RSS, setting up all the feeds and stuff. But it is out there, and we're excited about it. We are recording now the second episode with the caveat, y'all should know, that we're recording it a little bit early because at when time this is released, will be on vacation in Rio de Janeiro. So we had to record a little bit early. But we're excited to be here for episode 2 of Outlaw Gamer Radio, and I'm excited, actually. I should say, actually, like usually I'm not. I'm excited about what we're going to talk about in the show this week.
I am as well, and we'll get to that in just a second, but just one programming note. Lauren mentioned the RSS feed, and many of you have been asking about the same thing, wondering. This show is going to it is going to be on a new RSS feed, so if you're listening to this on OutlawGamers.com, just look, I'm planning on adding a little widget to the site that'll show all the various places that you can follow the show. We are going to be on iTunes, so you can get us through podcasting app on your iOS device. But anyway, the point is that all that should be up and running very, very shortly. Now that the first episode is out of the way, is officially in the feed, we can actually submit the feed to all these places, and then hopefully make it easier for you guys to find us. So anyway, that's the skinny there. Now on to the meat and potatoes. So first up in the garage this week, we got a news story. This comes to us from Aaron B, who's a listener over at OutlawGamers.com, and this was in the activity feed. And it's good news for Sony, is what it is. PlayStation 4 sales, Sony has announced, have topped 18.5 million units after the. This is as of January 4th, 2015. So this is with their big holiday push. According to PlayStation Japan, Sony overall CEO Kaz Hirai says that, quote, "This is a remarkable success for this next-generation console and actually exceeding the rate of adoption of other PlayStation platforms to date." So, according to Sony, PlayStation 4 adoption is even faster than the PlayStation 2, which, of course, is the best-selling home video game console in history. So, not looking too bad for Sony. What do you think, Lauren?
Well, not looking too bad for Sony, or as you said, good news for Sony, if, for example, your network actually works. But when it doesn't, you have just that many more pissed off customers, I suppose, don't you? No, it is good news, and more than just good news for Sony, which it is, of course. It's good news for our industry. I think that it's very, very exciting to know that the adoption rate is so high, and I think it's gonna. I think it bodes well for everybody, Microsoft included, Steam included. Gaming continues to gain momentum and gain steam as we move.
Despite the fact that we were assured that gamers were over, just a few short months ago.
That's right.
Turns out not so much.
That's exactly right. No, it's great news. I'm a big fan. I have a PlayStation 4. I'm a big fan of it. I know there have been issues. I don't have an Xbox One yet. I don't know if I will end up getting one this generation or not. But as I said, it's good news for everybody, and I'm happy for Sony. I enjoy the product when it's working, and good news all the way around. I hope it continues that way.
I agree. And speaking of some more Sony good news, well, I mean, we presume.
What do you mean? Well,
we presume it's good news, but
of course it's good news. How could it not be good news?
We've got some details on Uncharted 4. Lauren, why don't you run through that for us?
That is good news. Yes, it was revealed recently that Game Informer, as has been the norm lately, is doing month-long coverage on a specific game, and this month that coverage is on the upcoming Sony exclusive Uncharted 4, which I couldn't be more excited about. And we got some story details in this story in February's issue of Game Informer. Game Informer's sort of typical month-long hub is up and running over at GameInformer.com. I think it's GameInformer.com/Uncharted4. And today they just put up some screenshots, which were nice. But we have some story details revealed, as well as a confirmation that there will be multiplayer in Uncharted 4, which comes as no surprise. They didn't reveal any details.
No big shock.
Yeah, not really a surprise, but it is confirmed that there will be multiplayer. What we did learn about Uncharted 4, and there are some potential Uncharted 3 spoilers here if you've not played that game. So just consider yourself forewarned.
All right.
Please, yes, continue to do that through this whole time. This whole segment.
That's the way you gain listeners, right there.
That's just good radio, is what that is. That's just good radio.
That's good practice.
Edward R. Murrow is just rolling in his grave. So at the end of Uncharted 3, Nathan and Elena get married. They don their wedding rings. They don't actually show the marriage. But in Uncharted 4
takes place... the point that they had actually kind of been married and then split up and they were kind of recommitting to each other?
I'm sorry, yes. Yeah, I apologize. And Uncharted 4 takes place 3 years after...
What kind of Uncharted fan are you?
I know, terrible. I only played through Uncharted 3 once. I'm waiting for the HD remaster.
Me too.
Which, goddammit, they better do. And this is what I hope that we hear some news in this month that they're going to do like a remaster, and for $60 you can get the first 3 games remastered in HD.
God, that would be so good.
So Uncharted 4 we now know takes place 3 years after the end of Uncharted 3. Nathan Drake's brother, who was revealed to us, Sam, played by Troy Baker, was revealed to us just about a month ago in their 15 minutes of gameplay that they released. We now know that Sam was supposed to be dead going into Uncharted 4, and he sort of shows up surprisingly, of course, to Drake and Elena, and says that he is trying to find some pirate treasure on a fictional island set in Madagascar. And off goes Nathan, and I would assume Elena at some point. Off goes Nathan Drake to help his brother find the pirate booty before their rivals. I can't remember the names off the top of my head of. Libertaria is the name of the mythical pirate colony in Madagascar. And then Rafi, R-A-F-E, and Nadine are the rivals that are trying to get to the treasure first. And so adventure ensues while Sam and Nathan Drake try and get to the treasure before Rafi and Nadine. And so just basic story details, but still very exciting. And I don't know, man. I'm starting to get the fever again.
Well, and for good reason. I mean, Naughty Dog has delivered time and time and time again when it comes to this series, and have built. I mean, they've built not just a great series of games, but I mean they've built a franchise that in many ways defines what Sony consoles are and what people expect from them and so forth. Also, I think there is almost a fetishistic kind of fascination with putting Troy Baker and Nolan North into games together. Mm-hmm. They both have such amazing gravitas, and obviously are have turned out really remarkable performances in myriad titles. And they do some stuff together. Obviously, in Shadow of Mordor, they play opposite each other. I don't think they actually have any scenes together in The Last of Us. And if you haven't played The Last of Us, I'm not going to tell you what character Nolan North plays, but let's just say he's got a cameo in that game somewhere. But anyway, having them play brothers opposite each other, I think is really cool. And I think we talk about the whole connection with like Indiana Jones and Tom Selleck, and how I always thought it'd be cool if like Tom Selleck were like Indiana Jones's brother secretly. Anyway, it's cool. I really have to say that on top of all the gameplay stuff that I'm sure is going to be amazing. You know how you just have like like kind of favorite actors. You're like, oh my god, like it would be amazing to see this actor doing this kind of movie or playing this kind of character, something like that. I have to admit that in that same way, I'm looking forward to the performances from Nolan North and Troy Baker in this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, and you know what else I'm really excited about, Brent, is Uncharted is so much about the relationships. I think the play between Nathan Drake and Scully, Nathan Drake, and it's a crazy X-Files crossover. You haven't
Nathan Drake's Gillian Anderson.
It's DLC. It's going to be great.
Can we please get Gillian Anderson in the next Uncharted game as the saucy femme fatale?
That's right. The relationship between him and Sully, the relationship between him and Elena, obviously. I mean, these are what make Uncharted so great, and so I'm very excited to see them explore this relationship. Not only to sort of, as you said, highlight the marquee double billing of Troy Baker and Nolan North, of course, but just the idea of the brothers as well. I think is a really interesting one, and I'm intrigued by it. I can't wait to see more on it.
All right. One thing that I can't wait to stop seeing more on is Dying Light.
I was curious how you were going to feel about
this. We've got 6 minutes of gameplay from CES of Dying Light, and it's not the greatest quality. It's somebody holding a camera off screen, but even despite the quality, I think that you can get a sense of the fact that the game does look quite good. Of course, it's running on PC here, but does look quite good. And yet, I have to say, I was so turned off by the story trailer that we had a good laugh at. I think that was on the last episode of the Axe Factor when we were hanging with Tony and Daniel.
Yeah.
But I was so turned off by the story trailer that I really haven't recovered any momentum of enthusiasm for this yet. What about you, man? Are you looking forward to this?
So, I mean, this game comes out in a couple of weeks. It's supposed to be a big title. It comes from a couple, fairly well pedigreed teams, and
people who know shit about parkour and zombies and putting them together.
There's essentially like a couple major parts to a video game, such as this, right? Like story and gameplay, and we kind of talked about how we felt about the story trailer, and so you think, okay, but if the gameplay is there, then it doesn't. Like Shadow of Mordor for me is a classic example of that.
Don't give a shit about the story, love the gameplay.
I couldn't have cared less about the story personally.
Yeah,
but the gameplay was so compelling that I absolutely loved it, and
I kind of agree.
And but dude, the truth is I don't know how much you watched or didn't watch, but at the point when you and I spoke,
buddy, you and I spoke, the whole burrito,
and you said, "Hey, I haven't watched this trailer yet. I got to watch it before we record." And I said, "Just so you know, you probably only have to watch the first couple of minutes because I don't think your opinion's going to change as you watch through the rest of it." And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but mine certainly didn't. And it just. I hate to be disrespectful because there's so many men and women who put so much blood, sweat, and tears into making something like this for so long. But the fact is that there's just almost nothing about watching this gameplay video that was in any way compelling to me. And it was really topped off at the end by the guy standing around waiting for the clock to count down.
Yeah, I agree with you, but in fairness to them, I will say this. Well, okay, number one, there's nothing wrong with you saying there's nothing here for me, because maybe this game is just not going to be your cup of tea, and that's fine. I mean,
right.
And the men and women who do this are men and women and capable of of understanding that they're not going to make a game that everybody in the world can love. But number two, I will say in their defense that what is so boring about this may have less to do with their game and may have more to do with the person who's playing it, and perhaps the person who's playing it is doing
the part of the game that they're playing
job at playing this game, or like you said, maybe it's that this particular part of the game is not all that exciting, although that is definitely on the developers, because if you're going to be showing off your brand new AAA game at CES, you probably want to have the demo be something pretty exciting. But in any case, I can give him the benefit of the doubt a little bit on this. And like I said, I'll give him props on the technical aspects of the game as I see it. But it's just not a game for me. There's just nothing here that has gotten me excited about playing it.
But it goes beyond.
I will grant them that I think that for this genre, for this style of game, I think that the weapon customizations that they've shown off and the potential of their weapon customization system, I think that probably could add enough depth of gameplay that you could probably have fun with this, even if you didn't care about the incredibly shitty story.
Yeah, maybe. I just, and there were some interesting weapons, but even if this guy is playing, and I'm not like seeking to bash the game, but even if this guy was playing not a great portion, of course you are. Even if he's not playing a compelling portion of the game, or he's not playing it well, just the AI and the combat itself looked uninteresting. It just didn't look like it was engaging to him. Even at some point he just kind of stopped fighting because it looked like it wasn't even fun. And the way I don't know, I don't know, and perhaps really it's supposed to be about exploration during the day and more about the fighting and the fear at night, because I know there's a whole night component to it. And so I'll reserve judgment, but again, I continue to see sort of nothing from the media that's put out there that is compelling to me personally, mate. That's making me want to sort of get the game.
I think that's a good point. I'm going to kind of take a page from your playbook. I am also going to reserve judgment, except I hate it. Welcome back, everybody. We're here in the clubhouse. We're going to kick things off with the first weekly poll in Outlaw Gamer Radio history. Of course, if you listen to that other little show that we did for 185 episodes, this is no surprise to you. But with that having been said, we're going to do it with all the plum and zazz that we can muster. And so for that, we go to our man in the field, Mr. Lauren Baumgarten, who is on location to share his poll with us. Lauren.
And has neither plum nor zazz. Brent, we got a poll this week. Now, I do have to preface this again with the fact that we're recording this show early, so these would be sort of early election results, if you will.
That's right.
This could very well, by the time the show...
polling.
Yes, so this may or may not be representative of the final product of the poll, but we want to run through it anyway. And Brent threw up a poll from based on episode 001 of Outlaw Gamer Radio, talking about episodic game content. And we asked you guys, what's your take on episodic game content these days? And Brent gave you 4 answers to choose from. And so far, this is how this is shaken out. Coming in fourth place is I love it, always have. Tied for second place, I guess, Brent, when they're tied like this. There's no third, I guess.
That's right.
Are the answers, I'm waiting to be impressed, and I don't hate it, but I feel like kicking it a little. I love it when your answers make you laugh, Brett.
It's the little things. It's the little things you got to get.
And then the number one answer so far, at least, which is to say 4 people chose it. Just kidding. It's more than that. Is I gave it a shot. It's not my flavor. So it sounds like kind of right now, anyway, in the early exit polling results, that most people are sort of middle of the road on this subject. There are a couple that kind of like it, but most people aren't really enjoying episodic content. There were a couple people who pointed out other episodic content games for us in the comments section, including things like commenting on how we're still waiting for quote unquote episode 2 of Broken Age, and commenting on like Half-Life 2 episodes. And my response to that is I don't even think of those as episodic games, either one of those, and where technically they're supposed to be. Yeah. And they're so like not episodic that I don't consider them episodes, and I don't think that's all that uncommon either. So it sounds like right now the pulse of the gaming nation, as we know it, is that maybe episodic content isn't the way to go, but that doesn't mean there isn't a place for it in the future, Brent.
That's true. That's true. So moving on to this week's topic, of course.
Yes.
As many of you are aware,
tech.
It's CES, and while CES has not been the central bastion of gaming as far as trade shows are concerned in a couple of decades, nonetheless, gaming did get its start there, and gaming still has a bit of a foothold insofar as hardware is concerned. I would say mostly But CES this year has several items that I think are going to be of interest to gamers. So we thought we would sit down and run through some of the big highlights. Now, once again, recording the show early, it's entirely possible that there's going to be some more breaking news before this is over, and if so, we'll cover it next week. But we've already got a chock-a-block section full of some rather interesting things. So we're going to kick things off, I think, with one of the more exciting developments, which is that NVIDIA, they revealed the Tegra X1, which is a new mobile chip with, I mean, it's just this thing can eat grass and shit barbed wire or something. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. It's got a teraflop of computing power. It's designed, for handhelds, for tablets, mobiles, low power consumption. They're going to power a car with this goddamn thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, the X1 looks to be a pretty impressive piece of hardware, and NVIDIA showed some good demos running on it. Lauren, what about you? I mean, you're a I was going to say you're an NVIDIA guy, but I stopped halfway through and realized, like, no, you're not. You're an AMD guy, aren't you? Or at least
currently,
you have on your gaming PC.
No, I mean, I am now. I'm not. I don't have a particular allegiance, and I've gone both ways. I'm not going to lie to you, Brent.
Listen, we all knew that already, buddy.
I think the card I had before this AMD might have been an NVIDIA. I can't remember, but I'm considering an NVIDIA when I go back to the States. So I'm not. It's not like brand loyalty necessarily. It's just what happens to be the better card for the money at the time that I'm buying it, and that just depends. But I love what NVIDIA is doing, and I love the money they're investing in, not only in their chips but in their gaming devices. With the Shield and stuff like that, and the NVIDIA Shield tablet, which Aaron just got and is really enjoying as a gaming
Shield
device.
The Shield tablet does actually look quite cool.
Yeah, he said it's super, super cool. And so I really, I appreciate NVIDIA's dedication to gaming. I really, really do. And this is what really struck me as I was reading about this, Brent, is that they said, so this is a was it 16 64-bit cores?
It's 8 64-bit CPUs and 256 GPU cores.
Which I don't even understand what that means.
Well,
that can't be what I think it means.
What they say is that it'll deliver about twice.
Basically, it's 256. It's 256 Titans. Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't know where the Titan falls in terms of like its computational ability, but
the Titan is the highest end card that NVIDIA has right now.
I doubt it's 256 Titans, but
no,
they're saying that it's going to deliver twice the performance of the Tegra K1 from last year.
Right.
And
so before you say it though, I want to say that so it is twice the performance of the K1. The statistic that was so impressive to me is that 15 years later at this point, it is the equivalent of the fastest, most powerful supercomputer in existence in 2000.
Yeah, so 14 years ago, most powerful supercomputer
in the world.
14 years later, 15 years later,
is now on a mobile chip.
Yeah, I mean that is accurate, and
that uses 10% of the power. I'm sorry. So they said it uses. They were showing an Unreal Engine 4 demo, which they said it took 10 watts to power on this chip, and that I think it was, and I could be off my timing here, but just a year ago, it took their video card 100 watts to power that, and a little bit longer than that, it took the Xbox 300 watts to power that, and now they've got this mobile chip.
That's reversed. The Xbox One was the one that it used 100 watts on the Xbox One.
Oh, sorry.
And then prior to that, just like an NVIDIA PC GPU, used 300 watts.
300 watts, and now they've got it down to 10 watts, and this thing is as powerful as the most powerful computer in the world in the year 2000, which is insane to me.
I mean, in all fairness, I mean, they say that, like, the demo you're talking about is the Unreal Engine 4 Elemental demo, and it does not look as good on this chip as it did running on like a full PC game rig. But look damn good despite that. I mean, there are certain things that it can't do quite as well or quite as fast as the full on GPU in like the Xbox One or something like that. But the fact that it is as close as it is in a mobile processor that can go into anything, just about. It's pretty ridiculous.
Brent, I mean, the fact is that there's no reason to think with the life cycle of the consoles now being somewhere between, say, 6, 7, and 10 years, that before we get to the end of the console, we will have probably not like a couple of years before we get to the end of the console, we would have a chip that a mobile chip that is more powerful than the consoles themselves.
Yeah. It's it's really not that, it's not that difficult to see that day coming. I mean, Tony and I have talked about this a number of times, with every iteration, iOS and Android phones, you look at the graphics running on there and they seem to inch closer and closer and closer to what home consoles are doing. And because they do, as you're pointing out, because they iterate hardware on a yearly cycle, they evolve much quicker. So it's pretty interesting. I guess it would be pretty.
It's amazing, and
to see where this goes.
I really think, Brett, the implications from a gaming standpoint, at least for me personally, I'm not much of a mobile gamer.
Yeah,
I think a lot of the implications that we're going to see in the next, say, 5 years about this from a gaming standpoint will be less about like playing better games on a phone necessarily, as at least for I think are going to be. In putting them in other devices like a phone that, for example, can project a light-based keyboard, or that can project onto a wall, or something like that, or which we can kind of segue this into the next device, virtual reality.
That is an excellent segue because, as it turns out, our next story is about VR. Lauren, amazing.
Go figure.
So Razer. Of course, if you're a PC gamer, you know Razer all too well. Make expensive PC peripherals, of which I own more than 3. And Razer's getting into
really?
the VR
I don't think
game.
I was aware of that.
Well, I got a mouse, a keyboard, and 2 headsets. So anyway, the point, though, is this. Razer's getting into the VR game. They have revealed their OS VR dev kit. And don't you want to know what OS VR stands for? Razer sure wants you to. It's open source virtual reality, which Razer is really hoping is going to kickstart, not in the trademarked crowdfunding sense, but they are really hoping that OS VR is going to give VR in general a swift kick in the pants and get it moving down the road and evolving and really turn it into a viable ecosystem. They say that they're kind of frustrated with the state of VR as it exists right now, this closed model of prototype and developers, and they want to see VR out in the wild being developed actively by the VR community, who they think is going to have the ability to solve a lot of these problems that up until now companies like Oculus have basically been tackling on their own, and also to figure out best practices and find new and innovative ways of integrating existing hardware to make VR an even better experience moving forward. So, with that in mind, they have revealed the Razer OS VR dev kit. It's going to be coming out for public consumption in June this year, I want to say.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, June 2015. And they've also got there's some development stuff what they're calling the OS VR ecosystem, and that's going to be I think that's currently in beta, or currently just going to devs. That's also going to be available to the world at large later this year. So what they're showing off at CES is the OS VR Hacker Dev Kit, which is their VR hardware. It's a set of goggles. It's got similar specs to the Oculus in many ways. It's got a smaller screen, 5.5 inch compared to the Oculus's 7. But other than that, field of view, resolution, those are pretty comparable. Lawrence, since you're the one of us that has actually used VR, I'm curious to know what do you think about this. I don't think that you would be necessarily jumping to buy this per se, but I am kind of curious about the experiences you've had so far, and what do you think about Razer's strategy with OS VR?
Yeah, I'm not so sure that I'm not so sure it is a strategy necessarily. I'm unclear as to in the context of a strategy for them. I'm unclear as to whether or not there's a long-term intent to try and make themselves money on this. I think it's listen, anything that I think is jumping into the VR space like this, especially from a company as reputable as Razer, I think has value, and it pushes VR forward and brings us closer to consumer virtual reality, which I'm hoping we're going to actually be entering into at the holidays of this year. That's my hope.
Yeah.
and I think that this is a good thing. From what we saw, I think there's an IGN video, where they go hands-on with it. And they describe it as very similar to the Oculus experience, but not quite as high quality. However, they describe the fact that, the idea is like they had a Leap motion sensor plugged directly into the OSVR dev kit, and it worked very, very well. And the idea is you could plug sort of almost anything into it. That's the open source aspect of this. I think it's interesting in that I've never thought of Oculus as a closed source platform. I mean, they're very open source in terms of their ecosystem. Certainly, they are working on their own methodologies. For example, they have their own research going on around, for example, input devices, but they're not stopping other people from doing it. And their software and hardware is not necessarily closed. And so I'm a little unclear as to what Razer's dev kit offers. It's cheaper. It's $199. So yeah, I mean, so I'm not 100% sure. I'm sure this will be bought. And like I said, it's cheaper. It might offer some more versatility this is really, really developer centric. I mean, certainly the Oculus Rift, dev kits, they're called dev kits, are also developer centric, but people like myself bought them because they were sort of the first on the market. At this point, I can't see any consumer buying this. I can't see why any consumer would necessarily buy this device. This is really developer centric, and I'm sure developers would buy it, and I'd love to see Razer getting behind it. And frankly, if it pushes Oculus even harder towards a consumer release, I still think Oculus is really going to be first to market with their device in a way that a level of polish that other companies don't have quite yet. We're seeing more of it. You saw, Brent, I think at CES, was it Sony? I can't remember who has that virtual theater, basically.
I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, it's essentially like headphones that you can swing down and put in front of your eyes, and it's a virtual reality theater. It just doesn't necessarily play games.
Right.
We're seeing more VR stuff, and more VR stuff is good, and more VR stuff pushes VR forward, and so that's a good thing.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I think that I think that market competition is a fantastic driving force for innovation, and I think that other people getting into this space is only going to be a good thing. I think that that Razer going open source with theirs, as you point out, perhaps not quite as big a deal right now because Oculus has been so kind of open with their hardware and software up to this point. Although the simple fact is that that can change anytime, and perhaps once they actually start releasing consumer hardware, perhaps it will become kind of a more closed thing. But I think it's an interesting move by Razer. I think that they are actually probably in a pretty good space to get in on this, given that they do have so much experience with hardware and manufacturing. So I think that it'll kind of remain to be seen what ultimately happens from this, but I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see other companies get into the VR space because it only, as you were kind of saying, with PlayStation in that story at the top of the show, it's not just good for the people who might have this hardware and use it or whatever. It's good for the entire market. It's good for the entire VR ecosystem, and I, like you, am very, very anxious to see that realized, particularly where it concerns its potential for gaming.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And that kind of brings us to one of our other things that was announced or talked about more during CES. It's actually been known about for a little while, but it was really sort of the coming out party here at CES, was Samsung Gear VR's Milk VR.
Yeah, not MILF VR. Although in hindsight, maybe they should have gone your way, because that'll sell some VR right there. Let me tell you.
That will sell some VR. This is Samsung Gear VR's VR storefront.
Yeah.
I'm really unsure about the name. I'm not sure why they chose this.
It's absolutely one of the worst names that's ever been devised by anyone for anything. It's I don't understand it, but you can go to milkvr.com is up now. There's nothing on it, but supposedly, Samsung's Gear VR is the Oculus Rift, Oculus's partnership with Samsung to create mobile VR. John Carmack did a ton of work on
on getting this to work, and it's supposed to be a very compelling experience. It's a VR headset in which you take the Samsung Galaxy Note 4, and it only works with the Note 4, and you can plop it into this VR headset, and you have a mobile VR experience. It's supposed to be very, very compelling. This is their virtual storefront, where apparently they're doing a lot of 360 VR cinema. And to the point of the creators of Walking Dead are producing content for Milk VR, which I think is all of this again is just excellent news for VR. These giant companies getting behind it, and I could not be more excited about it.
I agree with you. I think that despite the terrible name, and incidentally, they have there's like Milk. I can't remember what the name of it, but like Milk Music or something. But they've got like other services like in the Milk family. If you can get the air quotes,
family,
devoted to, like, delivering, I don't know, like music, movies, and TV and stuff like that. So it's not like they haven't had time to figure out what an awful, terrible name this is. But anyway, that having been said.
Do they in Spanish-speaking countries, is it called Leche TV?
If I lived in a Spanish-speaking country, I might be the person to ask that question. But since you're the person living in South America, maybe you can ask somebody that lives closer to you.
Yeah, and I'm not anywhere near. I'm not near a Spanish-speaking country, unfortunately. I'm closer than you are. Actually, that's not true.
As Brazil is. No, you are to hell and gone.
We may be equidistant. Actually, you may be as close to Mexico as I am to say Argentina.
Oh, come on, Colombia and Paraguay. That's just like a stone's throw from you.
No, actually, I'm very far from Colombia, but I'm pretty close to Argentina. But I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. No.
Anyway, so
terrible name. But
over. The point is.
Yes,
and I am excited about content, because that's the thing. The VR hardware. This is one thing that Tony always says, and despite the fact that I disagree with Tony every time he opens his mouth,
most of the time,
not really.
Yes,
but he is right to point out that the hardware in and of itself is fine, and you can get excited about the technological advancement or innovation that's occurring. But ultimately, as a successful business venture, the hardware isn't jack shit without the content. You got to have content for any of this to really matter and to grow and move forward. And
you absolutely do, Brent.
I'm excited,
but I will say
somebody's doing content. That's great.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and you absolutely do have to have content. I will say for once you've tried VR, I think your perspective shifts a little bit, and you recognize that
your perspective shifts in VR. You get it.
That's terrible. Well, I said we're trying to channel DK a little bit. Fine with that. Let's move on from VR.
Let's
I will be curious, Brent. I will be curious to see next year, 1 year from now, when we're looking at CES, what the VR conversation will be, and we'll have to remember to sort of reflect back upon that. Next up, Brent, is something that I think is pretty interesting. I think it has the potential to be very interesting.
This is probably the thing I am personally most excited about from what we've talked about so far.
Oh, well, so I'm curious to hear why, and I don't know. Did you watch the promo video at the bottom of this article?
No, I haven't. I haven't yet. I've only read about it up till now. I haven't watched any media on it. But the potential, and let's just go ahead and say it rather than burying the lead, what we're talking about is the Razer Forge TV, which was yet another piece of hardware announced from Razer at CES. And go ahead, Lauren. Why don't you run down what it is and what it can do?
Well, essentially, and I'm curious to hear, Brent, what you think is compelling about this device, but essentially, it's a $150 set-top box that looks like about the size of an external hard drive. Yeah. It seems to me to be a combination of like a Roku box, the Ouya, and a Steam box, sort of.
Yeah.
I mean, the sort of the three big features are
in conjunction
that it plays
with
Android
piece of
games.
Hardware, yes.
Right. So the big sort of three about it is that it plays Android games natively. I'm sorry, I should restate this pricing structure. It's $100 for the box, and then you could buy for $50 a controller. You could buy instead. They have a really interesting looking laptop keyboard and mouse setup. When I say laptop, I mean it lays across your lap, not like a laptop computer. That I think is about $50 also. And so natively it plays Android games. It like a Roku box or whatever. It's got all your sort of standard Netflix, Amazon TV streaming type services.
It's an Android TV device.
but it also will stream your games from your PC to your television
with the addition of another piece of hardware that's $40 called the Cortex. It's called like the Cortex Stream.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, so you need another.
So what I saw,
you need another piece of hardware. What I saw, though.
Okay, so what I saw, and the reason I was going to ask you about what was compelling about this to you was if what's compelling about this to you is the same is what's compelling to me, which is the PC streaming piece of it. The other pieces to me, again, I could not care less. I really couldn't possibly care less about playing Android games on my television than I do right now, and I can't see a case in which that will ever not be the case. But as far as the set-top box stuff goes, like the Roku, the Hulu, the Amazon, it is a requirement, in my opinion, for any device like this. But it is, again, couldn't be less compelling because I've got 7 things already that do that, including the Chromecast, which is $30.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's one of those things. Like it's not going to be very disruptive in that space. Although for people who might be looking to get a new piece of hardware or who don't have some kind of smart TV hardware already connected to their television, like over Christmas as an example, like I got both Zeeley's grandparents, my parents and my wife's parents. I got them both an Apple TV so that they can use that to watch the photo stream that we have set up for Zeeley. That we every day we send pictures and videos that we take of her up to that photo stream, and that way they can look at them on their TV and all that kind of stuff. But for both families, that's the first smart device that they have. I think that
but that's not an audience for this device. No. Anyway, I mean,
my point is that it's going to be fine for that. Like you're definitely going to be able to get it for like that purpose, and it's going to be great. Whatever. I agree with you on the Android gaming thing. I think the Ouya has demonstrated, I think quite well, what you can do with games in that space. And I think that the Ouya has done it, pretty well. It's just that they've not necessarily been all that successful at doing it. So right now, I don't think there's much of a market for that. Despite the fact that having a Razer manufactured controller, that I'm a little bit more interested in because the Ouya controller is not fantastic. But PC streaming, with this device, that's something I'm interested in.
It is interesting because, and we've talked about this before, Brent. I mean, it's when you start looking at just a strict cost comparison, and you talk about somebody like myself, for example, who wants to have a PC gaming option to play with play with my PC gaming buddies, and to play if my wife wants to watch a TV kind of thing, but also wants to have a console experience for when I feel like sitting on the couch. This is an ideal product for me because it could theoretically replace a console at that point. I might consider not getting a console if I could have a compelling experience. Yeah. Right, and when you look at it from a financial standpoint, if you already have a computer, say you're going to spend $600 on a computer, sort of like regular off-the-shelf Dell, for another $300, you could have a pretty good gaming computer if you can get someone to build it for you. And then you invest in this thing, and all your games are $10 cheaper because you buy them on the PC platform, and you now can play them on multiple platforms. I think that's very compelling. It's super compelling. The one thing, Brandon, the reason I asked you if you had watched the video was because in the video, when they get to that part of the device, it says "coming soon."
Yeah, well, and obviously, there's a couple of different things that have to kind of work for this to be a compelling experience. And if you go to Razer's webpage, they've got like a little infographic. They've got a sheet and everything that kind of tells you what it is that they're doing differently that the other guys aren't. And essentially, this Cortex Stream, this box that you get, it's like $40 or whatever, that you that plugs up to your PC and then communicates over Wi-Fi with the Forge TV that's wherever your television is. And those two are going to talk to each other over your Wi-Fi network. And what Razer is touting is that they've got a proprietary system that they don't specify, except to say that the other guys use H.264. So in theory, they've got some other kind of compression technique or something that they're using that is going to be sending up to 1920 by 1080 video at up to 120 frames a second from your PC to your television, and that the device, once it's on your Wi-Fi network, it's going to figure out everything about your setup and what the fastest, best quality it can deliver is, and then it's going to do that reliably. That's the claim. So if they can make good on that, though, then I think that they may really have something, because as we talked about going back to the Steam machines, that was one of the things that we were most interested in. The idea that you could have a stream box connected to your TV that would make it very, very easy for you to have your PC wherever it's convenient in your home to have your PC, but be able to experience some of those games on the television, and how some of those games are really, really best consumed on the television with a controller, relaxing on the couch as opposed to at your desk. I think it's great. I really think it's a great option. As somebody who's really, really become enamored of PC gaming in recent years, I'm excited to see somebody do that in a really reliable, high quality way. So Razer getting into this space with this device, I think is a pretty exciting prospect, provided that it actually delivers what they're selling.
I couldn't agree with you more, man. I think if it delivers that, I'm definitely in the market for this. There's no question.
Me too. Yeah.
And I think, I'm excited to see, if it delivers what it says it's going to deliver, unlike, this show.
Welcome back, guys. We are rounding the final turn into the straightaway. We're hitting the road with the games that we've been playing this past week. I was about to say with what we've been playing. I don't know why I would have used that phrase, but anyway, we're going to talk about the games we've been playing, which has not been an awful lot. Of course, for us, the week passed a lot more quickly than it did for you guys, since we're recording this a little bit early. As we've said many times now. Anyway, Lauren, you're going to talk a little bit more about Dragon Age Inquisition, I'm sure. So hit us up, man. What do you got?
Well, as we said, we're recording this a little bit early.
No, are we?
So I haven't been playing much. I have been playing the golf club a little bit, of course, which should come as no surprise to you.
Right.
And by the way, for those of you in European territories, I did want to mention
wasn't there like a sale or something going on with that?
There is a sale on the golf club until January 21st, okay. And this is insane to me. I told them not to do this. Actually, it's 60% off, 70% if you're a PS Plus
member. Me, but that means great savings for you.
That's exactly right. So if you ever consider getting the golf club, you can play against me if you want to. 60 to 70% off in the European territories. But anyway, so I've been playing the golf club and totally enjoying it, of course. But mostly I've been playing Dragon Age Inquisition. And although I've only had enough time to play another 3 or 4 hours of the game since our last show, it's really starting to open up for me, Brent. I'm starting to get a bigger picture. I finally added, so you start off the game with 4 party members, yourself included. So there's 3 other party members, and you don't get to they go through the mechanics of you selecting the party, but the reality is there's no one else to choose. Well, I finally got to the point 7+ hours into the game for me, where I'm starting to add other party members, and so I can choose other party members, which is awesome.
Right. Does that? I mean, are you finding that really like substantially? Does it substantially change? I don't know, like how you feel about the game, or like how the game kind of is to play.
Well, it does in the context of, so I'm really starting to realize how robust the narrative is in this game and how good the acting is. And there's a whole race I hadn't unlocked yet, the Canary, which is like the Giants race. It's interesting. And I feel like the two characters that I've unlocked to this point, which I'm 100% sure are probably, well, they're probably pretty standard. You could choose not to bring them with you, or not to allow them to work with the Inquisition. Like, you actually get that binary choice when you encounter them. Have them join the Inquisition or tell them no. And I can't imagine why somebody would say no, because I don't get the sense that I got the sense if you say no, they just go away. Like, it doesn't necessarily go down another story path. Yeah. And so why wouldn't you just say yes so you have more options? But either way, they're the first 2 people you have the option to add, and I chose to make them available, and I chose to do so. And I think they're much more interesting than the people that were in my party before. So from that standpoint, it adds to it. You can, if you want to, you can spec out. So, for example, I was a level 6 when I got these people, and they both, therefore, were level 6s, right? And so when you get them, you then get all the upgrade points you've had to this point, 8 upgrade points, you could spec them out. You could pick a tree and spec them out in a completely different way. So like I had a mage in my party before who was a lot of frost stuff. I could have taken this new mage and made her all fire if I wanted to. So in that sense, it could be compelling. I chose just to hit the auto spec button because I don't like to screw with that for every character in the game but my own. And so, yeah, it's interesting. It definitely has changed the tactics a little bit. But I can see now that there will be later in the game times when I go back and change my party and like I spec out somebody who's really good at this or really powerful at that, and I will need to choose them for this kind of fight because that's a frost dragon, for example. Right. Which I don't even know if that's a thing. But,
you mean in this game?
So I'm just making that shit up.
Because in general, I can assure you frost dragons aren't really a thing.
Yes, no, they are. It will have meaning.
Animal
But
Planet series here, Finding Frost Dragon.
So that's that. You know, that's been kind of cool. I purposefully played with the tactical style of gameplay because I felt like I owed it to the game to do so. And I could see where the enjoyment is there for people. I'm still preferring to play real time myself. Yeah. And then the other thing is I opened up, so there's 2 main halves of the map at this point in the game, and maybe throughout the whole thing. There's Ferelden on one side and Orly on the other, I believe it's called. And I went and did my first mission on Orly, and I'm now realizing like this how ridiculously huge this game is. The original area that I went into, the hinterlands, I thought it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then there's like this coastal area that I thought was smaller, the Storm Coast, and it's like way bigger than I thought it was going to be. This game is huge. And there's just something I was reading.
Give us like a comparison. I mean, like as opposed, like Grand Theft Auto 5, Skyrim. I mean, like how big are we talking?
I don't know. I can't at this point. I mean, I feel like. That's tough. It's almost. I feel like it's almost like I would probably be more akin to say Mass Effect, only because Mass Effect isn't like when you talk about things like GTA 5 or Skyrim, I feel like you're talking about like they talk in terms of square meters, right? Or square miles or whatever, kilometers. Mass Effect, you don't talk in those terms because it doesn't make sense.
Well, and I don't. It's not like a linear open world.
Right, and certainly Dragon Age is a linear open world, but I don't know, it's huge. I mean, I feel like it's Skyrim big, like I don't even know at this point. Like you look at it on a map and it doesn't look that big, but then I get in it and I'm like, Jesus, this just keeps going and going and going and going.
I want you to continue on, but I just want to take a second to say that using the phrase linear, open world may in fact be that may be a contradiction.
An oxymoron.
It's possible. I'm trying to decide if I agree with myself or not. Keep talking.
Did I say linear open world?
I said linear open world.
No, yeah. Well, linear in the context. I don't think linear it's an oxymoron
you don't experience it in a disjointed fashion where it takes you from location A and then later on you kind of warp to location B, which I would consider to be a non-linear.
No, not even that. I think linear. When you talk about GTA or Skyrim. I think when I use the term linear, I think more in terms of like an actual... I'm really sorry that I
brought this up now, I have to tell you.
I think in terms of an actual like real world map as opposed to like a galaxy, which is, a series of planets that... Anyway,
that's almost exactly the same thing that I just said.
It's not even near anything like what you just said.
And said the exact same thing that I said.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. That's what my people are good. Do not, under any circumstances, make that the title of the show. Because I know your little tiny gerbil is
promises
twisting in your brain. Yeah, dude, I'm really really enjoying the game. It is really compelling. I spent like an hour not doing anything but watching cutscenes. Yeah. Maybe it wasn't that long, and I was totally into it. And would go do a mission, and I was totally into it. And then I spend 30 minutes like picking flowers.
I know how much picking flowers means to you as a gamer.
It does. I'm really enjoying it. I'm only, like said, 10 or 11 hours in, and I could see how this could be a 100-hour game easily. And I'll have more for you. Like I said, I can't. It's hard for me to speak to how large the game is because I feel like in the last couple hours, it's sort of I've sort of had this realization that it's bigger than I thought it was, and therefore I feel unsure about my previously conceived notions about the size of this game. So I might be able to speak to that better, next week when I have more time to play it. But either way, it feels huge. I'm totally enjoying the narrative, which I wouldn't think I would in a game of this type, but I really am. The acting is fantastic. I'm getting into the combat more. I have a deeper understanding of the stat stuff, and while stats and hardcore RPG stuff is not my jam necessarily, I'm enjoying it, and it has just enough of auto fill the points where I don't have to play it too hardcore if I don't want to, when I don't feel like it, and I'm really enjoying it, man.
So basically what you're saying is you're glad they nerfed it, is pretty much what I'm getting here.
No, I'm glad they gave us options.
Also, I would like to point out that "It Feels Huge" is going to be the episode title. Just so you know.
Fair enough.
It feels huge. Quote, Lauren Baumgarten.
What do we talk about? So that's Dragon Age Inquisition so far. Totally enjoying it. Let's talk about your games now, Brent. I see you have a couple of games on here.
Mobile games once again. I haven't.
Yes, surprise.
I really want to sit back down and finish Shadow of Mordor. That's kind of my.
There are people that are clamoring for a postmortem on that
I want to
game.
do a postmortem on it, and I got to finish the game first, so I really need to, get back and finish that. It's just, it's a busy time. My daughter's first birthday is coming up later this month, and so there's preparations and stuff to be done. I say preparations, mostly it involves cleaning our house, which, we didn't do through the month of December because we were gone half the month of December, and now we got to do it. So, there's that whole situation to deal with. But anyway, my point is that hopefully I'm gonna get back to Shadow of Mordor soon. In the meantime, I continue getting my game fix on L mobile platform, playing some Banner Saga on iOS. I'm working through that right now. I can't overemphasize how good that game is on iOS. It plays really, really superbly, and I think is really, really well suited, which is probably by design. But anyway, the point is that somebody was asking me, and I'm sorry, I can't for the life of me remember who it was now. And actually, I think that this might have been one of the last interactions I had with peeps over at Epic Battle Axe before I started neglecting that site and trying to get all the.
You gonna do that? You gonna do that to Zeely if you have another child? Just fuck it.
Well, I mean, if you talk to parents that have multiple children, that's exactly what happens. So anyway, the point is that somebody had asked me about playing the Banner Saga, if I thought it was going to look good or play good on an iPhone 5S. And personally, I think that it does. I think once you see the game playing on the screen, I mean, it's really, really done well. The interface is great. And I mean, the graphics look, really, really fantastic. I'm playing on an iPhone 6, which has got a bigger screen than the 5S does. And I think it looks great. I don't have any qualms about it now. Having said that, I'm really missing my iPad 2 at the moment because I would love to play this on the iPad. I think it would look beautiful on a tablet. So I think it's 100% playable and enjoyable on a phone screen. But if you have a tablet, it might be even better. So anyway, just I'll put that out there for anybody that may have also been wondering about that question.
Well, congratulations to the guys at Stoic. I'm really happy to hear that. Actually, I not that I doubted it, but I just I'm such a big fan of the studio. Obviously, Alex Thomas is a friend of the show, and I'm really happy to hear that it's so good on iOS.
It is. It's really, really been a rewarding thing to kind of have games like that to kind of pull out whenever you're looking for that mobile game fix. And then as per my usual mobile game fix, Star Wars Commander, they just wrapped up another campaign that was actually going on while I was traveling for the holiday. And I have to say that I think that through the first year of the game and everything, I feel like they've really kind of figured out what it is that they want to be doing with these campaigns and how to make them compelling to bring people back in and stuff. And I think I talked about this briefly, so I'll try not to repeat myself too much. But they do unlocks during the campaigns. You can unlock certain vehicles and things like that, that you can only get through campaigns. And then furthering that, once you've got those vehicles unlocked, the only way that you can upgrade those vehicles is through a campaign. And so it's cool because, it's one of those things that you end up looking at, you look forward to the campaigns and you're curious, okay, well, what vehicles are they going to reveal this time, or what vehicles will I be able to upgrade this time? And at first, a couple of the things that they've offered, I've not been too enthusiastic about. Like one of them is a starfighter, which, within the context of this game, you use starfighters for like bombing runs, to like strafe defenses or, infrastructure, whatever, that kind of thing. And they had offered up a couple of varieties, but there's this one starfighter that I wasn't terribly impressed with. I just didn't really see like how I would use it for much of anything. But during the course of this most recent campaign, which was a single player campaign as opposed to one of the big tournaments, they put you on a couple of missions using this starfighter, and it was good because it was kind of like, oh, like I get now how I would use this and why it would be advantageous and stuff. So, they kind of use the campaign itself as a kind of a good selling point for why you might want to try and, get enough points to unlock one of these and level it up and use it and that kind of thing. So it's one of those things like I kind of see like how the game's evolving, and I'm pleased. I'm really pleased with what they're doing so far. I just upgraded my base to level 8, which is the current maximum it can be. So now I've got to, use my money to upgrade as many of the other things as I can as possible. And a bunch of like my facilities and stuff are now, I can upgrade all those to level 8. I've unlocked some new buildings and stuff I can build. So it's cool, man. It's maybe an unlikely game for me outside of it being Star Wars, but I look back on like when I started playing this early in 2014, and it's one of the few games that's really managed to hold my interest in a long-term way. I mean, there's plenty of PC and console games that, I wouldn't play on the regular the way I do this one. So they're definitely doing something right with this title, at least as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, they're doling out Jedi crack.
That's right. Well, but you know what? I still haven't spent money on it other than that. Like that first $5 I spent, like maybe a month or two in, I still haven't spent any more money on it. So it's whoever they're getting their financing from. It's not me.
Have you ever played a game, Brent, called Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy?
Yeah, of course. That's one of the seminal Jedi Knight games right there, buddy.
So Rowan posted, I think. I don't know if you saw this post.
Yeah, she's got it running on. Looks like on Android.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know the deal. I haven't looked it up, and if it's on iOS or not. But it's running, I guess, on Android. So I saw that and immediately thought like, oh, that. I wonder if Brent and actually what she wrote was, so Star Wars Commander wasn't really fulfilling my mobile Star Wars needs or something like that. And then there's a picture of it.
Jedi Academy will do it.
You might want to check that out.
Yeah, I have to see if it's on iOS. I don't know if it is or not.
Yeah, well, that's awesome, Brent. Well, I bid you a fond week, Brent, as I enjoy my sunny vacation on the coast of Brazil, and I look forward to hearing what everybody has to say about everything we talked about this week. As usual, it is time for us to turn it over to you and for you to jump on the hog. Maybe that could be the title instead of How Big It Feels, Brent?
No, not a chance.
Damn it. All right. Either way, you guys, jump on the hog. Tell us what you think. Let us know what your thoughts are and everything we talked about. Star Wars Commander, the Banner Saga, Dragon Age Inquisition. Any of your thoughts on what we talked about, CES 2015, or anything else that you've seen there that you think is interesting. And, of course, what we were talking about when we were spending time in the garage, the PS4 sales being 18.5 million worldwide at this point, which is just fantastic for all of us. The reveal of the Uncharted story over at GameInformer.com and or the 6 minutes of gameplay from Dying Light. Feel free to talk about that if for some reason it compels you to do so. Other than that, as always, we thank you guys for being here.
Fresh dialogue.
Pay no mind to Eeyore in the corner over there. He is Brent Adams. I am Lauren Baumgarten. And remember, guys, ride it like you stole it.